Hello, guys. I have a microphone now. I've actually had this for over a year. I just haven't gotten to use it yet. Okay, anyway, what we're going to discuss today is this book, and it's actually a double book. So, on one side, we have Stepping Stone, and the way this works is that you have this book up until, yep, and that's where we have a blank page. And then it goes into the next story. So you gotta flip it. And then you have Love Machine. Now, Love Machine was definitely the better out of the two. The reason I picked up this book was because Walter Mosley, the author of this book, I've read one of his books before, back at college, and I liked his style. He wrote good, and he integrated smut into normal scenes really well, and it wasn't gratuitous or anything, and that's what I like with his style. Love Machine had a lot more of that than in Stepping Stone, and while that was cool in some parts, it was weird. Love Machine is about this scientist named Lois Kim, who works with this other scientist named Marchant Lewis, and Lewis was making this machine which could connect minds into this hive mind, and then they could share memories and go in between each other's spaces and stuff mentally. Now, Lois rejected this at first because it was freaky, and she was scared of Marchant Lewis, but she has this dream this one night after coming in contact with the machine, and she ends up going to his house and living with his commune. There's this one character, and I guess this might be sort of a trigger warning for, I don't know if I could say pedophilia because it was unintentional, but pedophilia slash bestiality stuff, it was weird because, in the commune hive mind thing, there's a coyote with them, but also there's this, 17-year-old girl, and one time, our main character, Lois Kim, she goes and meets this girl, her name's Cosette, and they end up, going into, the collective mind together, and seeing through, the coyote's memories and stuff, and then when they wake up, they end up, doing it, and it was shocking, because, it just felt wrong. But moving on in the story, Lois ends up, merging minds completely with Marchant Lewis. This is what he's been urging her to do since the beginning of the book, and finally she ends up agreeing. But once they start, it hurts Marchant Lewis so bad, and this is a spoiler, he ends up dying from it. But after he dies, his mind is now within her mind too. So effectively, two minds, one body. Now, shortly after this, they end up burying Marchand's body in the backyard under potatoes. The police coming and knocking on their door because they have them under counts of murder, having a wild animal without license, kidnapping because... I forgot a part. Okay, so... yeah, after they end up merging, Lois has her old boyfriend kidnapped and brought there because she wants to bring him into the co-mind too. And this ends up getting the police involved because, he went missing and shit. And so they end up having this court case, but since now her boyfriend's under the co-mind, she kind of can convince him to say whatever. So he says it was all a big joke and stuff, even though he was legitimately terrified at the time. End up winning the case in court. Her lawyer, who was once her boyfriend's lawyer, became her lawyer because she was also exposed to the coal mines. She ended up destroying it because inside her she had this like creature called Urde who ends up just kind of feeding on their minds and destroying the co-minds. Like Urde is some kind of like alien being. They end up like getting her out of there, but it was hard and they lost a couple minds in there. And by the end of it, the lawyer, she ends up just dying because of the alien coming out of her in the mind space. And then the book just kind of ends. Or the story kind of ends after that. I really enjoyed this story because like it was a unique concept I've never seen before in writing, and I felt it was pulled off very well. And also like just like what I love about Walter mostly is that he writes protagonists very well. Now, Stepping Stone is the second of the stories in this. Or actually, I think it was supposed to be read first, but whatever. I didn't. This book is about a guy named Truman Pope. He's framed as this ordinary guy who works in like this like mailing kind of office thing. He is autistic, which did play a big part in the beginning and throughout it. And also, he's an orphan, which is a big deal later on. I like about how Walter mostly writes him is that he just like he hones into like certain minor details like about bugs, and that makes me very happy because I'm a bug nerd. um I'm not gonna pull out my collection right now. In the first part, there's this major detail, which is that there's this like woman who wears this yellow pantsuit that only Truman can see, and this ends up getting him in trouble at work because he ends up blocking the elevator with his cart to try to find this woman, and then like his supervisor sees him do that and is like, "What are you on?" And then she tries to get him fired, but it didn't really work out. The woman who only he can see, her name is Minerva, and not only can only he see her, she doesn't leave footprints anywhere. So once we get into the second part of this story, we are introduced to the concept of the fact that Truman can connect to others through dreams. Like, for example, he's seen people in fights, like, with lovers. He's seen people trying to kill themselves. He's seen people, like, this mother with her dying son. Stuff like that. Like, he can see and he can, like, talk to them in his dreams. And we don't really know why that is until the third part of the book, which was honestly very strange to me because out of nowhere, at the beginning of the third part, he just gets arrested and like brought into custody in like this room with he's wearing a straitjacket and stuff. Apparently, now there was something going around the world called the Holocaust flu. It was called the Holocaust flu because of how much lives it was taking. And apparently Truman started it, and the government knows that, but Truman doesn't. We learn like later on, like Minerva ends up getting him out of there because she's able to cast some kind of glamour on him. She then like brings him to her place, which is this really vor-like cavern-ish area. Like, just the walls, they're alive and pulsing and creepy. And it's revealed that this place is what Truman really is. Meaning that he's a higher being beyond comprehension, and so is Minerva. They're two parts of the same being. And how Truman started the virus was that he was messing around with genetic code, being a higher being. And now being an orphan is important to his story because he's a higher being in disguise as a human, but he doesn't know it because the whole like no memory when you're born thing. So we find this out, and it just kind of like, I don't know. Minerva ends up dying because the people who were trying to kill them like targeted her instead of Truman, and she hid him there. But I don't know, it's just the way the third part of this book goes is it's like extreme turn from what was normal, and then back to what was normal, and then extreme turn again, and then in the last couple pages and stuff, it just kind of keeps zigzagging like that, and it's jarring read. The way it ended was that like Truman could like protect like his lover, who I did not mention because, well, she is an important part of the story. There's a lot bigger things going on that felt I should explain it more. So yeah, it ends just kind of like with this note that like they're both like in charge of the world because he's a higher being and can create, um, and she's by his side and stuff like that. But it just ends after that. Like after reading this book, I just kind of went like, just because of how it ended, it didn't feel like it felt weird and out of nowhere. Um, so I would say out of these two stories, Love Machine is definitely the better. This was like Walter Mosley's attempt at science fiction, and I think it was a very good attempt. Um, and it had nice pacing and nice development, and like just the perspective of like the main character and like how Walter Mosley writes women was pretty good. I felt definitely not a case of r/men writing women at all, so that's a plus. Anyway, that's all I had for today's video. Check it out or don't check it out. I mean, I just wanted to talk about it because I just finished it. And also, no one else is going to talk about this book because when you see people talk about books on BookTube, it's either books that just came out, popular classics, or I guess just books that got popular in general all the time, and this one didn't, so it's never gonna get talked about unless I do it, so that's why I talked about it. I also had a lot of feelings. So yeah, check it out at your own discretion. I'll see you in the next video.